Thanks everybody for joining me on another episode of Tell Me Everything. I am your host, Danielle Spinelli. Today, I have Adrian Chapman with us. He is with Cover 3 Consulting, and super excited to have a recruiter end on the line because it's interesting to hear about how to grow your business, especially right now. The market, if you've noticed on LinkedIn, seems like everybody and their mama is posting about a new job. So it's cool to see like, okay, what growth should everybody be at and what should everybody prepare for if the market does actually switch. I think it's important to kind of know that. And then also, how do you retain people? Because that's another thing is as people are looking around, how do you keep your good guys from not leaving you? Because, of course, that can make a big impact on your business. So let's jump in it.
Tell me everything.
Tell me everything.
What up, Adrian? Do you always, I hate to even be the person to say this, but like, Adrian, that's like, you're like, I hate you for saying that.
Never
right?
heard that in my life. Never heard that in my life. No, I hear it daily. That's like a true thing. Like every day of my life, people are like, yo, Adrian. And I'm like, I can either like, I don't really know what to say at this point because I hear it all the time. So I just sometimes will play dumb and be like, what are you talking about? And they're like, like Rocky. I'm like, I know, I got it.
That's funny. You're like, I would just play along for so long. Like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Never
that's
seen
such an
that
old
movie. Yeah, that's cool.
So funny. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it. I know I was on your podcast, so I'm like, now you got to come on mine and we can talk about you.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
So, I know. I love it. So real quick, will you do an intro kind of about say yourself, say kind of like where you've been and how you got here in logistics, what you're doing now, and then we'll kind of jump into all the fun stuff.
So my name is Adrian Chapman. I run a recruiting agency in the transportation space called Cover 3 Consulting. I named it that because I have a sports background. I was a football and track athlete in college. I coached some college football. Part of the reason I named my company that was just because I saw a lot of people, both in business and in sports, like trying to overcomplicate things. Like they had like the most complex like scheme imaginable. And for me, it was always this thing of like, man, if you would just like put really great people in a position to win and give them the tools they need to just let them play ball, they would win. And I saw that bear out many, many times. And so Cover 3 is a simple coverage. It's been around for 100 years. And if you could put good people in a position to win, they will succeed. So that's how Cover 3 came about. Been doing it. I've been in the transportation space for a decade now, and we serve transportation companies all over the country. So
that's cool that you came up with your name like that, because I definitely agree with that, where I think people do overcomplicate things and over manage a lot of times. People want to work hard and they want to do all those type of things, but it's like give them instructions and clear expectations and let them go, because most people can figure that out. If not, you probably hired the wrong person, probably need to find somebody else. But that does, I mean, that does happen. But, I think the micromanaging part, all that does is put more pressure on people, and it just, I can't stand being micromanaged. So that's me.
Well, it's funny, like the moment it hit me, I was in college and I was watching this high school coach. He was coaching this like high school linebacker who was like just lost. He was trying to make different checks and get everybody in line, and he was so confused. And I was like, football, while it's more complex than people realize, it's not that complicated. And this poor kid, I was just like, man, he just needs to fill the A gap on this play. But his head was swimming with every possible scenario that he could ever imagine. And I was like, make it simple for him, coach. Just make it simple. Let him play ball. He's a good athlete.
Yeah, no, definitely. My son plays basketball, and he's kind of the same way, where like if he overcomplicates the play, or if it's mainly in his head, if he overcomplicates things, then that's whenever he'll end up doing like a travel. And I'm like, what? Because he's thinking about the step work instead of thinking about the game.
Paralysis by analysis. Yeah. That's what coaches say.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I guess pulse check on the industry right now. What are you seeing as far as in the recruiting space with agents jumping around? I know I'm seeing a lot on like the tech side, people jumping around. It seems like every day I'm seeing somebody else post on LinkedIn about they're at a new company. Are you kind of seeing the same thing on your front, or pulse check on the industry? What are you thinking?
Yeah. So if you were to zoom out and like look at like the overall like labor market in the United States, it's a bad labor market, which means like there's very few jobs and there's a lot of job seekers. And I would say that's similar in the transportation sector right now, because of demand. I'll zoom forward in a minute, but what that means is there's a lot of people who have been laid off or let go, or they decided voluntarily to leave over the past, especially year or so. And so you see a lot of people who are either looking for work actively or passively, which means you are seeing some of the, like, okay, that person's here, there's new opportunities, but it's the active, like, hiring has slowed down a lot. Are there still opportunities? Absolutely, there is, but like not remotely where it was 2 years ago. Is it speeding up? I think so. Like we saw, you're seeing like Tinder rejection rates, shoot up in the past couple weeks here, and so that's encouraging. And I think if that continues, then we may see a lot more hiring on the back half of the year.
Yeah. As far as like an employee goes, I think there is, as far as feeling safe in your job, right? Like I think the past couple of years have been where nobody did feel safe to leave. They're like, I'm safer where I'm at, because if I leave, I'll be the new kid on the block and they could easily cut me. Whereas I got a little bit of tenure here and I just need to stick it out no matter how kind of miserable I am. I think that's been a lot of people. And so from my standpoint anyways, I'm not an expert in this, but it seems like a lot of people nowadays are like, okay, like it's time to make a jump and that type of thing. So it'll be interesting as far as market goes and logistics plus just the employment market. Cause those who are, I think, at the position where they can expand regardless of the market. I think right now they're actually making those changes prior to and really grabbing the best people personally, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a great time to hire people because the example I've always said is like, if you have talented and productive people in a down job market, in a low demand job market, because you realize like, man, either, hey, they can sell, or man, they're a really great finance solution, man, they can cover trucks, whatever their job is in a down market, like you're really going to find out, you're going to separate the wheat from the chaff in those spaces. So in my opinion, that's a time, if you're hunting for talent, it's easier to find those people because they're still producing and they haven't been let go. Not to say that everybody who let go is not a performer, but oftentimes if you stayed somewhere and you do have some tenure, probably you're pretty good at your job. And so to your point, I think that those people who have continued to produce in whatever they're doing, if you are still producing in this market, you do have a choice to make. Like, hey, I can stick it out here and I can ride it out and life's good, and I'm happy. Or maybe if not now, when? If not now in a down market, am I really going to do it when business is booming and things are flying fast? Probably not. So I might as well do it now.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of times when the market is flying faster, making money, you do put up with a lot more things than you would normally at a job where you're like, okay, I can suck it up. I'm making money. I don't really care. But when, like you kind of mentioned, in a down market, if it is where I'm still crushing it, I'm still doing good, but I know this isn't, my full potential, but I hate the way I'm being treated. I hate whatever it is that you can't say about your job. Making that switch. And sometimes it's just better opportunities out there, especially like with agents, there's with that percentage that they get. And things like that. Like, hey, maybe there's just a better company to work for that has they offer me more things and they, I can make more money once tables do turn. And so I guess that's kind of what always be looking, I feel like is the way to do it. But, figure out if you're happy where you're at, I guess what's your feedback on this?
No, I think you're right. I mean, that's a conversation I have with people a lot because I know it's like people are like, well, I don't want to like be ungrateful to my company by having a conversation. I'm like, no, it's a career, it's not marriage, right? So like to me, I'm like, go have the conversation. Don't keep your head in the sand because what happens a lot of times I see is sometimes companies and I don't fault companies for doing this, but like use an example, right? If we were at, let's say you got hired in 2019, I don't know, as a pricing manager, pricing analyst, something like that. You're $100 million freight brokerage. Life's good. You're doing things. Guess what? Then you've got COVID. And then after COVID, there's a big demand upswing. You could use some different things here. You could use housing or cost of vehicles or whatever. But like suddenly, um, the cost for a pricing analyst in the market today looks extremely different in 2026 than it did in 2019. So me having a conversation just to know my value, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's helpful because maybe, again, I'm just making up numbers, but if it was like, hey, I was paid 100 grand to be an analyst in 2019, it's probably at least 120 today. Um, and so it's worthwhile to have the conversation just to say, hey, I just want to see am I being compensated fairly? And a lot of times companies, they they may not be thinking about that actively. Like maybe you're getting a cost of living, bonus for a couple percent every year, but you're probably not being paid what the market would pay you externally.
So a question about that, having that conversation, because I think sometimes, you're kind of scared that puts like an X on your back of a target on, hey, I'm talking about this and whatever. Do you feel like if you do go to your company and talk about, hey, I'm here market wise and you paying me this market wise, I should be here. Do you feel like that's a conversation proactively to have, or do you feel like you need to have something in your back pocket just in case if they're like, well, skedaddle?
I think it all depends on the relationship you have with your organization and your boss. I always advocate do a great job. If you're doing a great job and you're performing really well, and you're the type of person who has a good relationship with your superior, like they're gonna want to keep you. They're gonna be like, oh man, like I didn't know that. And if you approach it with like, hey, a recruiter, and Adrian reached out and said that I might be valued at this. I wasn't really looking, but they just, popped over and said that this is where people are valued. And I was just curious, have you looked into that lately? Because that was interesting for me because that could make a big difference for me and my family. A good boss is going to say, wow, really? Maybe let me look into that also. And, I kind of position that's like free agency in the NFL or the NBA. Like that might be a moment where they say, hey, we can't pay you that, but I care about you and I want you to go. If you want to go explore other opportunities to play for other teams, man, I understand. But if you want to try to win a championship with us here at ABC Logistics Companies, we'll do the best we can to get you closer to that because we do value you. But I think that's a healthy conversation to have. And a lot of times in the world we live in, like people don't want to talk about comp and they don't want to talk about performance. But man, I don't know about you, but like for me, I want to know if I'm doing good or not. Like if I do crappy, tell me. I want to know. And I think, yeah, that's my feedback.
No, I totally agree with that. And I'm the same way where if there's something I could be doing better at, I want that feedback. Like I want to be the best at what I can do. And anytime I'm not, or if I hear I'm not, I mean, it does like eat at me and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't do this at my best ability. But then also I'm like, okay, how do I sharpen that tool and take that advice and then put that into play? And I think it depends on what type of person you are, where if you can handle that type of feedback back and, that type of thing, then that's when you are the one that should proactively have, that conversation. And I think even just as a retention piece for customer or for, brokers or whoever, as far as being boss, like retention piece of it, is there any like pointers that you have there? Is it mainly comp, just staying up to date with it? Or do you feel like there's like a lot of times I see like culture or just relationship? What are some things that you think as far as retention?
I think that it's funny, like this has changed for me over the years. I've, been in the game for over a decade, talked with thousands of people. The easy thing is money, right? It's easy. And that's not nothing. But what I find so many times for people is like their values. And that's part of the reason that they're leaving is what I value maybe as a 25-year-old guy or gal. Maybe that looks different suddenly as a 35-year-old guy or gal or 45-year-old guy or gal. And as a manager, I think the important thing for retention is being in step with your people and saying, what's important to you right now? Is it your family? Is it traveling? Is it flexibility? Is it money? And find out that motivator, because then you're going to be able to motivate them better. Like, hey, if it's money, man, I want to get you in the best position to win. So this is the way we hit your commission goals. If it's flexibility, hey, I really want to get you there. Maybe there's a way for us to do a hybrid schedule I really want to make sure we know you and trust you and you know what you're doing. So let's really lock in where we are here over the next year. And then let's revisit that at the end of the year and see if that's a possibility. If you're speaking their language and you're following through as a manager, you're going to build trust. And that trust will say, man, I want to continue to work for so-and-so. And they'll want to stay with you because you've spoken to their values. But if you don't ever have that conversation, it's really easy to be like, well, ABC company over here, they immediately would say you can have that right off the bat.
Yeah. So most of my audience are brokers. And so as far as, as far as recruiting, I guess let's talk about agents first. So, recruiting agents, what's like feedback on like obviously they need to hire Adrian to do all the things, but as far as like growing the business, like what are some steps that they should have in place prior to needing to grow before reaching out to you and saying, hey, I'm ready to take on X amount of agents? Is there something that they should be doing in their, background to kind of prepare for that as far as like an agent onboarding, I guess?
Yeah, for agents, for an agent program, I think a big thing is there's many agent programs. And so I think an important thing is a true differentiator. If I'm just throwing up a shop and saying, hey, we're going to pay you 50%, we've got a TMS and we're really nice people. Like it's not going to differentiate you enough that people are going to want to come over. So you need some kind of differentiator, whether that's compensation, whether that's you're offering benefits of some sort, like, insurance or what have you. Maybe you have a really fancy in-house TMS. Maybe you have a difference in your back office that you're offering more that other people are not offering. Something that differentiates you, I think, first and foremost is going to be really crucial and really key. The next thing I would say is like your first hire there is really crucial. And maybe that's let's call it your vice president of agent relations, or agent onboarding. You need somebody, I think, who's either been an agent or they've run a desk as a freight broker and they can speak that language, because you need someone who, if that agent, is like, gosh, I'm running into a situation, they can go to them and be like, can you help me? Can I at least empathize with you? That role's really important if you don't have that. Once you have those things, I do think it's important to have always, every company, whether it's agent or not, mission, vision, values. What's your mission? What's your vision? Who are we? What do we stand for? Where are we going? What's the vision? If you don't have those, that doesn't matter. But once you can differentiate yourself and you have somebody else that they can work together, let's go build something together. I want to support you and build. And if you don't have those things and people aren't speaking the same language, it's going to be really hard to hire and keep agents, especially when they work so independently.
Yeah, definitely. And so shifting over from agents to just, brokers that are desk brokers or whatever you just call them. What is there any difference, I guess, in that way where, because I guess for me, what I've seen is culture wise, especially if they're having to go into an office, culture is huge as far as going to the right spot. And just kind of knowing that they're celebrated for kind of those successes. What are some things I guess you've seen?
So I think culture would be more important even in this place, because when I think of an agent, very entrepreneurial, like you can go work on your own. You might work out of your basement. You might work out of a coffee shop. You might work in an office. Like, you're kind of wired different as an agent. Not for everybody. It's hard to be an agent. Can be the best. Some of the happiest people I've ever met are agents. They're just, it's great. But if you're in an office, you're typically a team person. I like the camaraderie. I like doing it together. We're building something together. And so I think your leadership is really, really important there. Like your day-to-day person has got to be somebody who's going to bring the energy and bring that vision and values every single day. And so to me, anytime I recruit for somebody, I'm like, I want to, who are you reporting to? And I got to talk to that person. Like, who are they, going to work with on a day-to-day basis? Because, if it's not someone that they're going to be like, go to battle with, it's going to be hard to keep people, if that person's really new or they haven't been in that seat before, that kind of thing from a recruiting standpoint. And so, I think it looks different today. I think there's this whole spectrum of technology, with AI and everything. I don't know that you have to have the fanciest of everything, but you do need to have a great vision and values, and you need to treat people really, really
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
I definitely agree. I honestly feel like I think people think tech is so important because they're putting band-aids on things. I think culture is a lot bigger than tech, but that's me. I mean, the newest and greatest thing, yeah, it's cool and people want to see it, but it's not, honestly, not everybody's even cares, especially depending on the generation and the age of the person. Not saying that that's everything, but I mean, it makes a difference. Well, since you brought up AI, let's talk about AI. I was waiting for it. Okay, AI. So as far as especially recruiting games, I think that as a recruiter, how do you feel like that's going to change kind of your game and your guys's industry, and then we'll switch over to like the brokerage industry as well.
So I think they're eerily similar, to be honest. It's recruiting and brokerage is fragmented in the sense that, like with a freight broker. I mean, as we know, what the stat is, like 80% of trucking companies are like privately owned small fleets under 5 or 10 trucks or whatever it is. And so finding capacity is so important. I mean, you have to know people and create relationships for it to really work. And I think the same is said for recruiting. There's tons of individual people in my world, for instance, in transportation and recruiting, that AI is not going to commoditize that overnight, because they don't have the trust that I've built over a decade in the industry, right? Like me sending out mass messages or mass, AI videos, it's not going to happen yet. Is it possible that there's a way? Yeah, I think we're already even at AI fatigue in some ways. But
Especially on a driver level.
yeah, exactly. But I think it's like, how do we automate certain tasks in such a way that simplify the process for everybody? And I was talking about this with some friends last night. I think AI is one of those things that will make, I hesitate to say this, smart people smarter and dumb people dumber.
Yeah. No, I think that's, I mean, even like professors and stuff say that, like the ones who are going to cheat and, just throw something in chat GPT, like, hey, write this for me, going to make you dumber. But the ones that write everything out, like, hey, clean this up, it's going to, educate them. So yeah, no, I think that's exactly the way to say it.
Yeah, like it'll empower, the guy who wants to win more loads. He's going to find a way to make AI help him or her. And the person who wants to use it for fraud, as we've talked about, they're going to find ways to try to do that too. And so figuring out, I think it all comes down to how much government gets involved on some of this, and then who can create AI type products that are easier for us to use in a clear and concise way. But I feel like all of that is it's here in some ways because some people have created that. But I don't think everything is going to change tomorrow. And so relationships are still so important. Humanity still wins. People want to do business with people. And I don't think that's going away tomorrow.
Yeah, it was interesting because recently the stocks all dropped down because they said AI is taking over the brokerages. And I've talked to people where it's like, hey, this I could build this type of TMS and only scale with X amount of people because I can have AI. And I think that's possible. I think you'll be able to work with less headcount and be able to do more for sure. But it's interesting the drop in the stock like that, because I'm like, I personally, I mean, I'm eager to see, right? Like, I think it would be really interesting, but I was a carrier sales rep. And so for me, that's the first job they're trying to have AI take over. And that's the one that's near dear to my heart. And I'm like, I love talking to my drivers. And I mean, I could have to me, it's great. And I think it's great that AI is training in a market like now where it was they're taking what they can get. But as soon as that switches and you're begging drivers to take the worst load that's possible out there, and you're like, please do this and whatever, that takes that human element again. And I think it will get to the point where it's we're too disconnected. If your company is focused mainly on AI, I think you're going to get too disconnected from that. So you need to have that good balance. Personally, that's my opinion.
I totally agree. Like, I don't think again, you know, I'll use like a down to earth example for everybody. Like, we've all probably gone into a McDonald's and we've like used the screen to order at some point in time, because that's more convenient. And they may not get my order wrong if I just click my own buttons, right? So in that sense, like, has technology made that path of resistance less? Yes. So I kind of see it in a similar way in transportation. Like, there will be tools that will make things slightly simpler, but if that machine is not working, if my order is still wrong, I need to talk to a person. I'm going to go find a person at the front of the restaurant and say, please help me. I'm going to be very frustrated if it doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great way to put it. So predictions, since we're still early in the year, 2026, what's your thoughts on this year as far as market goes? And I know that's kind of always a hard question because I'm always like, I don't know, who knows? And every time I do make a prediction, it's never the same. But even if you just want to talk on the, the recruiting level and kind of how you've been seeing things shake up. I know we kind of already talked about that, but just to summarize
Yeah,
what your
no,
predictions are.
for sure. I think I'm bullish on 2026. I'm not like, hey, we're gonna go like to the moon or anything this year. I think hiring will gradually increase throughout the year, to a point where we're like, hey, we may be approaching some higher highs by, let's just call it like the holiday peak season. That's my general thoughts. I'm not an economist. I could go into some of the details as to why I think that, but because I'm not an economist, people probably don't care. But I'll say this from a recruiting standpoint, that my message to like transportation companies is like, don't wait, hire now. And I know that seems self-serving, but I can't tell you how many times I've had companies come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, we've got all this demand, or we landed these customers and now we got to hire so many people. Can you help me? And it's like, I can try, but you're behind the 8 ball now. So my suggestion is, with the tender rejection rates we're seeing, with the demand kick up, I'm not saying you need to go hire 40 people tomorrow, but I do think you need to be strategic. And there's a good to great analogy of firing bullets before cannonballs. Go find a couple of roles. Maybe that's to support some business that you think will grow, or go hire a couple of revenue generators, some salespeople, to kind of test the market for you and see if you need to go hire more behind that. And that will help you kind of test the market and be like, hey, maybe we grow, maybe we don't.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to put it. And I think everybody's kind of at that point where they're like, do I grow? Do I stay? What do I do? And if I put all this resources into it, am I actually going to grow? Because I think a lot of people have been burned the past couple of years where they did that, you know what I mean? But I think we're finally at the point where if you do things right and really head down first and get in there, I think you can grow. I think we're finally at the point where you can grow as a company and it's not just stagnant.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've had several clients tell me like, hey, we're maybe moving more freight than the last year or two, and we're making the same or less money, because of the margin percentages that we're able to get right now.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, I think with AI, that's going to be kind of the same thing, but we'll see. We'll see. Well, yeah. How can everybody reach you? And also plug your podcast, because I want to make sure you get people to follow you on that too, because that was really fun. Thank you so much for having me on that.
That was great. No, I appreciate you being on. Yeah. So if you want to get in contact with me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm posting on there a lot. Good, bad, or ugly. So LinkedIn, /HAPS. You can email me, Adrian@cov3consulting.com, or our website's www.cov3consulting.com. The podcast is Recruiting Stories. Just Google Recruiting Stories. You can put my name in there too, and we've got dozens of interviews with industry leaders, industry professionals like Danielle, and we'd love to have you jump in.
Awesome, love it. Well, thanks so much for joining. Oh, one other question I had. What was your position that you played for college ball? What was
I
your
was
thing?
a defensive back. I was a free safety. So I
Okay.
was run fast, hit hard, not good enough to catch the ball. Didn't have bad hands. So they're like, just tackle people.
I was
Okay.
gonna say, I'm sure that means you run fast because that's what my youngest, that's what he was doing because he's a little guy, but he's speedy and he'll jump on anyone. So
There you go. Run fast, hit hard,
yeah,
man. It's a
yeah,
lot of fun.
love it. All right, well, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Danielle.
Bye, everybody.
Tell me everything.
Everything.
Tell me everything.